have a cup of coffee, then I'll go.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Coffee Time, or welcome for the first time. Hopefully you're getting this because as I clicked on go live, it came up without a title, and I set this up already with a title with a date. So and a big YouTube thing came up. So YouTube might be throwing me a curve. Mike, I know you're on. If you hear me, let me know. Hopefully it didn't reassign some different link. Oh, YouTube. It's looking that way. Let me see what I can find on my phone. Oh boy, it did it to me. Ivan Johnson, you hear me? Apparently what's happened here, because that's on a different chat, what's happened is that I set this up as I always do with the link to YouTube, and it showed up in my YouTube listing for pending live, and I went to the YouTube site and it showed starts in so many minutes, 44 minutes or whatever it was. And then when I clicked on this to begin, a big YouTube warning sign, big thing like that came up, and it required that I put a title in, which means it wasn't set up. So what it did basically was send off to another link. I swear I hate YouTube sometimes. Alright, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I could postpone, but I'm not going to, so it's just you and me, Ivan. People will watch this once it's recorded, apparently. So, sorry about the delay. So today I'm going to talk about hats. I'm going to talk about t-shirts. I'm going to talk about the coffee park and Hungry Man. So it won't be a very long day, but if you have questions, Ivan, if you have a question, get them ready so that when I get done with the topics, you can go ahead and put your 4 question marks and then ask the question. Mike, welcome back. Apparently it threw us to another link. God bless you too. Okay, so hats, t-shirts, coffee park, Hungry Man. What the heck? That's quite a mess. Well, it looks like people are finding the link after all. All right, first of all, hats. Now, what's this channel about? It's about all the boring and mundane things that go through my head and go through my life down here in South America. These Coffee Time Lives I started, probably 2 years ago when I was living in Cuenca. And, or Coffee Times. I started Coffee Time. I started doing them live here in Armenia. But the hats, when I did my Ecuador videos, I would wear this Ecuador hat. And this is, they call it Panama hat, but it's actually are from Ecuador. And it was made famous when Teddy Roosevelt was down checking out the canal, and it's really hot on the equator, and they brought them a hat. And so the news people, it was like became all the rage, the big fashion trend, and all the newspaper reporters called it a Panama hat because it was in Panama. Nobody knew, nobody cared. Panama hat. But they actually came from Ecuador. And these are made with a special straw called toquilla. And this one is a average quality. It's not a cheap one, but it's not the most expensive. But you see how flexible it is. It's very soft. And I don't like hats. I don't like to wear hats. I like how other people look in hats. I just don't wear them. I bought this because I didn't want to die. I wore it one day because the sun was so strong. So, Colombian time. Okay, so I bought it that day. I told that story a few times in the past, so I won't tell it here. But I had a hat. What am I going to do with it? Well, I'll wear it for my videos. It's an Ecuador hat. I'll wear it for the Ecuador videos. So then I come to Colombia, and I bought another hat. And that hat got left in the upper carrier. It was a pretty nice looking hat, kind of a chocolate brown. And it got left in the upper carrier on a bus that I was taking back to Ecuador. And so I went without a hat for a long time. And then I decided to buy one when I was down paying my water bill, and it's this one. And this was a very cheap hat. This hat was $3. It's, I guess it looks okay, but it just doesn't fit right. It's uncomfortable, and I haven't been able to stand it to do for these videos. But it is an official Colombian hat. But I was in Salento the other day and decided to try once more. And so here we go. So unless you tell me otherwise, this will be my official Colombian hat because this is a Colombian style made here in Colombia. And it's actually quite soft. It's almost like the Ecuador hat, although not quite as soft because I don't think anything can beat the hats in Ecuador for being soft. So that's it. This is my Colombian hat. Be interested to throw out your comments. I'd like to see what you have to say about it. T-shirts. I'm going to run a clip for you. You might have seen it in a recent video. I think I've got that posted up, but I got some controversy over it, and I would like your comments on it. Please don't be shy. Get your typing fingers going, and let's see, what do we have here? All right, looks like my chat's messing up a little bit. I do want to know what you have to say about it. So let's see, where is that clip? Here we go.
¿Usted sabe lo que quiere decir lo que lleva en la camisa? ¿Ah? No. ¿No? No sé. No sabe. Okay. Nothing is out of reach. No tiene idea lo que quiere decir. Pero le gustó el estilo, por eso lo compró, los colores. Por eso. Okay, nothing is ever out of reach. Quiere decir que nada está fuera de mi alcance. Okay. Entonces sabemos que usted lleva la camisa, pero no sabe lo que quiere decir. Okay, muchas gracias. Buen día. Bye.
Everything's possible.
Everything's possible. So our first interview turned out that the girl did not know what her English shirt meant. So that's 0 for 1 so far.
Okay. Okay.
Hola, buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están? Estamos haciendo una encuesta a la gente que lleva camisetas en inglés. Para saber, porque somos extranjeros, ¿no? Para saber si usted sabe lo que significa lo que lleva en la camisa. No sabe lo que quiere decir. No tiene idea. Ok, dice Spring is in sight. Eso quiere decir que la primavera está a la vista. O sea, viene la primavera
está
a la vista.
pronto
Ya
llegar.
está viniendo.
Sí.
So
usted no
it's-
sabía. Spring is in sight.
Take time.
Take time and enjoy every little detail in life. Tome su tiempo y disfrutar cada momento, cada detalle en su vida. Es lo que dice. Entonces, por lo menos es un buen mensaje.
Sí, sí,
Es
sí,
excelente. Pero usted no sabía.
No.
Muchas gracias por su
A usted.
Gracias. So that was our interview number 2. And we're 0 for 2 so far. She did not know what that meant in English.
So, what's the controversy on a clip like that? Robert, Fort Lauderdale. Welcome, Robert. That happened to be Robert from Fort Lauderdale in that clip. But after, well, you see, there's 2 videos that I've wanted to make for a long time. One is chicks on bikes. It's amazing how many girls ride motorcycles here, and there's just some interesting things that I wish I would get on camera. They just kind of go by me so fast, and I think it would be a funny, interesting video. And then the other thing is, and I've brought it up in a lot of videos, about the English language on clothes here. And it's a fashion trend. And on that video that you may have seen where I went shopping, I showed some clothes there that had words. A lot of times they're nonsensical. As long as it's an English word, it's fashionable. But you see t-shirts all the time. And based on what some of the t-shirts say, you just know that whoever's wearing it probably doesn't understand what that t-shirt says. I mean, I've seen some pretty embarrassing t-shirts that people wear. And so I've wanted to do a video for a long time that's nothing but stopping and interviewing people with the t-shirt to see if they know what it means and kind of verify my opinion on this, and or dispel it. And I would never have thought this would be controversial, because if somebody doesn't want to be in the video, they can just say no and walk away. So they're only in the video because they accept the situation. But I got a couple. Now, I'm not going to say I was inundated with, but I got a couple people that made some comments that just made me wonder, are people really misunderstanding this? Because from my perspective, I've been thinking about this for going over a year about doing it. And while this wasn't a whole video, while Robert was here, said, hey, why don't we do some of these? So we did a couple. This is actually our 3rd time trying. The first time we're kind of at the wrong time, wrong place. Second time was Sunday where nobody was out. Maybe that was, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. Anyway, managed to get a couple. So what was the controversy? What was the feedback on this? There you go, Mike. You hit it. That's what the controversy was. And I think that's just a misunderstanding. What does this comment say? It looked like they're uncomfortable, bordering on demeaning. And of course, that's not the intention. And I don't think the people that we're talking to actually felt that way. And I'll bet you that the person that you felt was like that was the older lady in the red t-shirt. Now, they could have walked away, but it was kind of a humorous thing for them also. Did she feel demeaned? I think what you see with her is what you see with a lot of people out of the cities, in small towns or small cities like Armenia, or out in the country. You see older women that are very shy, we'll say shy, and they're uncomfortable just with a spotlight in general. But on the other hand, it's not like if she didn't want to be in this video, we would have known that. No internet problems. It's YouTube. YouTube deleted the link that I set up, and then this program saw that link was gone, and it created a new link. I have no idea what's up with YouTube. I thought using this software I could get away from that entirely, but apparently not. Unfortunately, you had to come and find the new link, I didn't have time. There was no time because it's begun. So I could either not do the video or postpone, which would be a mess. So I'm just going to plow ahead. And sorry about that, but that's just the way it is. So, and I think I'm getting mixed chats. I think I'm getting chat from the old link. I don't know. It's very, very confusing. But anyway, so the first one, the younger girl, I mean, she was laughing and they kind of got a kick out of it. I was a little concerned because some guys are really possessive, and I was a little concerned that, you know, maybe the guy will think we're hitting on the girl or something. But no, they took it, they took it for what it was intended to be. And the older lady, it wasn't about what we were doing in the t-shirt. It happens to be the demeanor that a lot of older ladies have here that aren't like in Medellin or Bogota. So I think it's a misunderstanding, but I will say that she did look a little uncomfortable, but not because of what we were doing, but because of just how they are. So I'll reconsider this, and if we do some more, I'll take that into account. Maybe we'll just stick with the younger girls because they tend to get a kick out of it. I did 4 when I was in Manizales, but that was in the group of video that I'd lost, and all 4 got a real kick out of it. They were all, I mean, we were laughing, and it was far from demeaning. So I'm pretty confident that it's what I'm explaining to you. Yeah, so yeah, more comments on the video, and I'm getting split comments from the old link, so I don't know what the heck is going on with YouTube, but that's that. All right, so that's it on the t-shirts. If you have any other comments on that, feel free. The people that have found the channel, we've got 17 people that have found the channel. Usually we're about 4 times that by now, but if you want to ask a question, prepare it now, have it ready, and then as I get towards the end, which won't be long from now, go ahead and post 4 question marks and then post up the comment. So you might want to jot it down right now and have them ready. Okay, so we did the hats, we did the t-shirts, enough of the clothes. Coffee Park. Now, I mentioned to you last week that one of the contributors contributed specifically for me to go do video in the coffee park. The coffee park here is, I've compared it to Disneyland. It's not really, I guess it would be more of a Seven Flags type of park. It's more roller coaster, and while there's a coffee theme, it really is just an amusement park. And it's a quite nice one, actually. And for various reasons, I didn't get through it. I was there 5 hours, and there was a couple of the big feature attractions I never got to. There was a lot of things I didn't get to. But I'll go back and get the rest of it one of these days. But I got plenty to do the video and to give a good sense of it. I want to show you just some clips from it, and then I'll talk about it a little bit. I think in the I actually put some music to this clip. La 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 la. So you start at the top of the hill, you take the cable car down, and then here's the park area. Yeah, I got soaking wet. So that was my some clips of the trip to the coffee park. What was interesting from my perspective is I hadn't been there in about 17 years. And 17 years ago to today, as you can imagine, there's massive changes. The things that they did that I thought were real cute and quaint, like having Juan Valdez go around with his donkey and having the big coffee bean mascot and some other things like that, because it was totally themed coffee. I didn't see those at all. I saw more of a Seven Flags, you know, just kind of straightforward amusement park. And it was very nice. It's stunningly gorgeous. And in the past, they didn't have that cable car, teleferica they call it, that will take you down and take you up. What you had to do is up at the top, which is quite a drop in elevation, you had to walk down this winding dirt path. And it would take you through a bamboo forest, and it would take you through these robusto coffee trees, because they grow like the size of a maple. And you would walk through and you would see these historic things. There's a little museum to go to. I think that still exists. There was a building there that I could look down on from the teleferica about halfway down. But being limited for time, you know, we took the cable car down, we took it back up. And I will say it's a vast improvement going back up, because that hike up that steep hill, after spending, you know, a long day in the sun doing your thing, it was a killer. I remember about dying on that thing, and that was back when I was really in great shape. We all died. It's terrible. People got to the top and you thought they're gonna pass out or have a heart attack. And so the cable car is definitely an advantage there. So the changes were pretty striking to me. The roller coaster that you saw in the clip existed back then 17 years ago. So did that water ride. There's another water ride where it's a big round one that goes kind of down a lazy river. There's another massive roller coaster that's kind of crazy. It's called the Crater. And then there's a new ride. It's brand new. That it's a roller coaster, but your roller coaster are these little Willys Jeeps, and it looks pretty interesting. It looks like it's got some theme attached to it, but it's a large area. It's beautiful. The bamboo forests always, I'm just in awe because they're so huge. They go hundreds of feet up. Until 17 years ago, when I was there the first time, I had never seen bamboo grow as high as it does in that area. So that video will be coming out in about a week. There's a lot of work to do. I spent 2 hours just putting these clips together for you for today. So Justin, thank you for contributing for that, and I hope you get something out of the video. Mike, thank you. I very much appreciate your donations. Every week you seem to come through, and I appreciate that. So if you how do I say this? A lot of people that go to Ecuador and go here to Colombia have a hang up about anything tourist. They act like it's they're a bad person if they go to tourist, or somehow they have to show that I need to get in with the people and I need to live the culture, and it's just not the case. Tourist things are touristy for a reason. It's because they're fun, they're interesting, and it's part of the culture. The coffee park, we got there when it opened, but by noon the place was mobbed by, God no, thousands of people, and they were all Colombian. It's like, yeah, it is their culture. And I went 17 years ago. I don't know when it was built, but you can bet that there's fond family memories by many, many Colombians that went there when they were a kid, and now they're taking their kids. So when you go to a place, if there's a tourist attraction, don't be afraid to go. It's not, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. And I don't know how to explain it, but I see it all the time where people, no, I don't, it's like anything touristy is the plague, and I only want to do things like, I don't know, go sit on a farm and stare at crops grow. Everything here is the culture, so it's a fun time. Let me take a look at some of these. It just so happens I have a video doing a haircut. I think I actually posted that up, but funny. Where are we? What time? Okay, we're about to the questions, so you can start posting them up. And the Hungry Man thing, this isn't going to take long at all, but I see all the time with people to Ecuador or here in Colombia. It seems like the first thing that new people seize on is, oh my God, lunches are so cheap. And in Ecuador, it's like $3 to $4 for lunch in Cuenca. And if you get out of Cuenca and you go into the countryside, it's like $2.50. Here in Armenia, it runs $2.50. Actually a little lower, about $2.30 up to about $3 for your typical lunch. And they're amazed. And I was thinking the other day, well, if I was in the United States and I wanted to eat a cheap meal, could I do that? Could I do something for $3? So I gave that some thought. Now I will say that in Cuenca in particular, most of those lunches are about as unhealthy a lunch as you could find. They'll have pasta and potato and French fries and rice with a little tiny cube of meat, and the salad is basically red onions and maybe some cucumbers. There really is no salad. It's almost non-existent. You do get a pretty good juice most of the time. You get some kind of fresh natural juice. Not very much of it, but you do get it. So the lunches, if you really want to eat a healthy lunch, those lunch specials are probably not the way to go. Now here in Colombia or here in Armenia, I'll say that the lunches are far more balanced. You get a good amount of salad, you get a decent amount of meat, you get your rice. You don't generally load up with 3 or 4 carb dishes, but you might get 2. Here you pretty much always get a soup. In Ecuador, hit and miss. Where Ecuador has it over here is a lot of times the juice that you get here is I call it agua panela. It's basically sugar water. Now they call it lemonade because I think they put a squeeze of lime in it, but it's not. But here you can get those lunches for $3 and under that are relatively healthy. In Cuenca, you wouldn't want to live on what they're selling on those, but if you spend $5 or $6, you get a pretty good balance. Or you can cut the rice and double salad, but they really don't have much for vegetables there. So in the United States, what could I do for around $3? And it occurred to me, could order Hungry Man. You know, you go to the store and you find these Hungry Man meals. Now, before you go, oh, you know, it'll kill you and it's full of chemicals. Actually, they're not. They're actually not. And I remember a time when I was going through a relatively poor period, and for quite some time, for several months, I lived off of Hungry Man meals. And what I could do is, if you wait a week or so, you could always find them on sale. Very often you can get them 2 for $1. So you're buying these things that are like a dollar and something, and you know, they're pretty filling, unlike the banquet where you need to eat 2 or 3 of those. So, you know, do they still exist? Well, I just went to what was it, Whole Foods, I think, one of the grocery stores on the internet, and they had them $2.68. Now the number kind of threw me. It was an odd number, but it was on sale. So apparently these things are still selling for under $3, and you get at least as healthy, more healthy than you get in Ecuador, and about what you get here in Colombia for those meals. So I guess it's not as big a thing as a lot of people make it out to be. It is nice. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I loved being able to, you know, go spend less than $3 and have a complete meal. And I certainly wouldn't want to live on Hungry Man forever. You know, for those couple months, it got old fast because there's only so many kind of versions of it. But I don't know. You can get $3 and under meals in the United States too. All right, questions. Protest update for Medellin. This past week there was another day. They called for a protest. Didn't amount to much. And again, keep in mind, in Medellin there was no violence that I've been able to find any information on. There were some infiltrators that tried to cause some problems, and the protesters themselves basically grabbed them and gave them to the police. The protests here in Colombia have been so misunderstood, and I've done 2 things on it, but I guess I'm going to do a third. It's no big deal. These are not crazy, violent protests. You have some bad people that did a few bad things during these protests, but if there had been no protests at all, there probably wouldn't have been much difference in that category. You know, in a violent category. In Cali, where they tried to break into some houses, they used the protests as an excuse. It wasn't the protest. It wasn't the protesters. Protesters here are not angry mobs. In Chile, you've got a mixture. You've got people that are trying to make a statement, and some of them are angry. In Bolivia, those were angry mobs. They were just angry because they were lied to. In Ecuador, you had a mixture. In Ecuador, you had a similar situation where you had infiltrators that basically were ruining it. Some of the infiltrators outside of the country, some of them were cooperative groups, indigenous groups inside the country, and it was more about getting power. Here in Colombia, protesting here is like a way of life. It's like going on a picnic. I don't want to paint the wrong picture. It's just that I've been seeing these protests for years, and I have never, and I've walked through protests here, and not one time did I ever feel apprehensive. What I saw again this time around. I saw the people protesting, having a good time. I mentioned in a video a couple years ago at the border crossing from Ecuador to Colombia, there was a massive protest on the Colombian side. Gas prices had spiked. They went up for about 2 or 3 weeks, and the taxi drivers were just outraged. And of course, whenever there's a protest, teachers or schools get involved. They want more money. That's just a common thing. They just, anything that goes on, they jump on. We need more money for school. It's kind of old hat. So here's this massive group, and lined up in the front of the border, so the protesters couldn't cross over. Not that they were planning to cross over, but they went there because they could get television. Where all of these military, Colombians, I don't know, special forces, or they weren't police, they were the actual military, and they were dressed in black from head to foot, really well outfitted. They had the best of gear, best of M4 rifles, and so I'm walking across the bridge into Colombia, and these military, they're smiling, and one guy, you know, I thought he like waved to me or something, so I just raised my hand up and waved back, and a whole bunch of them waved, and they're smiling. And then I get to, you know, beyond them, and there's the taxi drivers, and they're playing salsa music, and they're just laughing and talking, and I mean, I swear, if an atom bomb went off somewhere, the Colombians would find some reason to have a party. I mean, protests are no different. It's a social event. And so I wouldn't want to be in Bolivar with the kind of protests that have been going on there. But I have no problem with the kind that go on here. And so the violence that you saw, particularly in Bogota and Cali, was not from the protesters. It was from the infiltrators. Some trying to stir up trouble, and it's not a secret. They're the indigenous Communist Party with support from the outside, trying to sway the populace to their side by taking any kind of issue and blowing it up out of proportion, trying to get people riled up. And that's just really what it boils down to. But the protests themselves haven't been an issue. The infiltrators are the issue, but then again, you know, criminalizing certain kind of vandalizing, robbery, attacking those houses, that would happen. It does happen from time to time, regardless of the protest. So you kind of have to put it in perspective. I compared it last time I talked about this to Occupy Wall Street, where you had a large group of the people that were just kind of camping out and trying to make their statement, misguided or not, didn't matter. They were just there, you know, pursuing their rights to do that. But you had a handful of the Antifa that were going around breaking windows. They would set a car on fire. They infiltrated. They used this protest for their own ends, and that's what you're seeing here in Colombia. But the protest itself is not a big issue. So if you see a protest with a couple thousand people, I would have no problem walking right through the heart of that and not worry about myself, because as a number of videos you can look on YouTube. I didn't want to steal other people's property, but I saw a bunch of them where see a group of protesters and they're playing music, and you'll see a handful of people in there just dancing. So, how are the protests? That's how they are. Ecuador or Colombia, what country is cheaper to live in? Well, it depends where. Bogota is expensive. Medellin is expensive. Cali not so much. Cuenca is expensive. Quito somewhat. Guayaquil somewhat. When I lived in Girón, a small town of about 3,000 people outside of Cuenca, it was quite inexpensive. Now, those are pretty vague terms, right? Well, my last house was a 3-story nice house in a great neighborhood in Cuenca. I scored I got it for about $200 less than what it typically would go for a month. I paid $400 for it. In Hidon, I had a house that was like a mini mansion. I mean, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. It was just massive. It had 2 gates. I could park 6 cars inside the property. It had a big backyard, had a front yard. It was a massive place. I paid $250 a month for it. Had that been located in a, say, San Joaquin, for example, in Cuenca, in that barrio, that neighborhood, that house probably would have been more like $800 or $900. I could get a haircut in Cuenca for, what was it, $6, but I could also get a haircut in Hidon for $2, and they were actually better haircuts. So you say, well, $6, that's so cheap. Well, yeah, but as I've explained so many times before, in Ecuador, the cost of those day-to-day things, for the most part, are relatively inexpensive. But the longer you live there, the more you realize, because of import taxes and other various government taxes and fees, that costs really go up. Just right from the beginning, having to pay $3,000 for a visa versus $500 here. I mean, you start right off in the hole. So I think you can find inexpensive in both countries, and it depends on what you're looking for. If you want to live in a penthouse in Medellin, you might as well be living in New York City. I mean, it can be quite expensive there. So I find for a population here in Armenia of under 300,000, but having several modern malls and all the niceties, and be able to use Amazon, for those camera things that I could not do when I was in Ecuador. The conveniences that are available here, the things that I can access that are simply not available to get in Ecuador, for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I can live here on less money and have everything that's available to me in the United States pretty much available to me here. In Ecuador, that's just not the case. And when I lived in that small town, I lived there for a particular reason, and the isolation wasn't a problem. But there's not many people that are not from that particular area that would go in there and live happily ever after in that situation, unless you're coming with all your friends and family. So for me, Colombia is the place to be. But there are some wonderful things, and if budget isn't a problem, Cuenca, if you've got a couple $1,000s a month, Cuenca can be a great place to live. It just kind of got old for me, so I had to move on. So what else we got? How's the electric grid in Armenia? Do the lights ever go out? Yeah, once in a while. But when I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, they would go out once in a while. Somebody would hit a transformer, or you'd have a lightning storm and something happened. Your lights would go out for an hour or so. The lights go out. Not so long ago, there's some construction around my building, and every so often I would lose my internet and then realize that I lost my power, and then 10 minutes later it would come back on. And every time it happened, I would hear this diesel engine where they're doing some construction, kick in. And I have a hunch that it had to do, because there's so much construction that goes on, I have a hunch that it had something to do with that, and not about the power grid. But as far as the power grid itself goes, it's fully modern. There's no issues with it. I don't get fluctuating current. It's really maybe more stable than when I lived in Raleigh. It seemed like we had more accidents that were knocking down power poles, and that just doesn't ever happen here. People don't go fast enough for that to occur. So it's no problem. And I would say Cuenca was pretty much the same way. Now, out in the countryside in Ecuador, it can be different. You get out in the country, it can be, there's so many areas that are barely developed, because most people live in and around population centers here. So, if you want a country place, I would just suggest that you include in that sale, make sure that you have yourself a backup generator. Okay. When did Colombia get Amazon? Not quite sure what you mean. Amazon's on the internet. They've had access to it, forever. I've only been back here living in for the past year and a half, and before that, it was 17 years ago. There was no Amazon, or 15, or whatever that time period was. 17 years, I think. There was no Amazon. So if you're asking me about 3 years ago, I mean, they don't block internet here. And maybe what you mean is, if you go to a product, sometimes that product will not ship to Colombia or other countries. Usually they just don't ship internationally. But that product will generally have a whole bunch of suppliers for that product, and you will find people that will ship. So you just have to, look at the ones, and it tells you, right up on the screen, we don't ship there. Yes, we ship to Colombia. That last order I got was free shipping, and I got charged on $120 order. I got charged 96 cents for the import tax. Now that's not representative. When I got the camera, I don't remember the amounts now, but I think it was $400 total, and it was somewhere south of $100 that was an import tax. Certain electronics have a cost. On the other hand, that camera I could not buy in Ecuador, but it's available. When I went to Manizales, I found 2 places where they sold them. Well, I actually only went to 2 places, and both sold them, so I don't want to misrepresent that. And one of them had several of them on the shelf. Unfortunately, they were really overcharging. The first one, they had run out. They were getting a shipment in any day, and their price was much more reasonable. If they had one on the shelf, I could have bought it for no more than if I bought it from Amazon. So availability in general is here anyway. Now there is something that I have to look up. Somebody told me, viewer, told me that PriceSmart has a program where if you order Amazon items through them, and there's a place where you just go to their website and you post the link of the product. If you order it through them, they bring those things down every couple weeks. So you might wait 2 weeks for the stuff to come in, but when they bring it in, there's no shipping charge, and there's no additional cost to it. There's no markup. They're not making anything on it. It's a service done by PriceSmart because they're bringing other things in anyway. So if you're a member and you're a paying member, that's part of the service you pay for. I've yet to do that, and I didn't do it with a camera because he mentioned it to me after I had already received it. That's actually what prompted it. I said, hey, my stuff came in. He goes, hey, did you know when I was in PriceSmart the other day, they told me that I could do this? So I'll look into it. I think you still probably have to pay the import tax, I'm guessing, but I don't know. And if I find out anything good on that, I'll let you know about it. I'm not getting the 4 question marks, so it's getting really difficult to see these things. Please put 4 question marks before you ask a question. And hold on while I try to see these. When were you able to receive shipments from Ecuador and from Amazon? In Colombia, in Ecuador, you can't. That's right. In Ecuador, you can't. That's what I'm saying. There's so many things that are just not available to you in Ecuador. And one of the many things, but one of the things that I love about being in Colombia is I have access to everything. Everything is available. Anything that I decide that I want to get, I can get. Now, in some cases, like the camera, yeah, you're going to pay a little tax on it, but it's not like the 400% that I would pay in Ecuador if I could get my hands on that camera somehow. You know, they don't have any taxes here anywhere near as high as the import taxes in Ecuador. Now, they keep talking in Ecuador, they have rolled some back, and they keep talking about how they're going to drop them down to something more like Colombia, but it still hasn't happened. They've been talking over a year about it. And when they went to get that last loan, one of the loan suggestions, I don't know if it was a condition, was to look, if you really want to do import-export in a serious way, you can't be gouging people on the other end. You know, you got to drop those taxes so they're more willing to do business with you, because why go to Ecuador and buy bananas if you're going to screw me on taxes on something I'm selling, when I could go next door to Colombia and buy all the bananas in the world and not have to face those taxes in retaliation on my products. And that's what's happened a lot. There was a time when Ecuador was king of the world when it came to bananas. And now, between Costa Rica and Colombia, you know, Ecuador is becoming second fiddle in the banana trade. So, you know, taxes are just a bad thing. Colombia has some taxes, but it's not as draconian. And I wish they weren't at all, but it's not as draconian as they are in Ecuador. For example, if you buy a new car in Ecuador, you can pay about double what that cost of the car is. Where here, there's going to be a tax on it, but nowhere near that amount. All right, so 12 months planning on moving to Ecuador. Well, you know, I enjoyed my time in Ecuador. There's a lot to be said for it, but you should just face reality. If you're going to go there and you're going to live, just learn to accept that there's a lot of things that maybe you like having in your life. Not critical. I mean, you know, you can live and breathe without cheddar cheese, but there's going to be a lot of things you will no longer have access to. And when you go to buy a TV or, you know, a camera or a cell phone, you're going to find that the price on those it's like, oh my God, why is it so much? In some cases, you're just not going to want to buy it. You just can't kind of bring yourself to do it. Then you have gringos that, you know, will pay people to mule something in. I'm going to the United States. Hey, will you bring me back such and such? And that's okay, but, you know, technically you could get caught bringing it. It's not like you're going to get in trouble, but you could end up, you know, paying a tax on it, you know, possibly even a penalty. So, you know, it's not the best of circumstances, where here I can just do it above board, legal, whenever I want. So, well, it's an interesting comment. Ecuador is popular because it's been sold. When I say sold, it's been marketed. It's been marketed as the hot retirement place. And a lot of those things simply are not true. And you have a lot of people that go to Ecuador and find out it's not their cup of tea, and they bail. And it's an inordinate amount of people. The statistics, last I knew, and I still use them, I haven't verified in 2 years, but I imagine it's about the same, is from North America, half of the people that move there and get resident visas from North America to Ecuador return or leave the country after the first year. That's a lot. When you have, X number of people, I'm just going to throw something out and say, I've got 20,000 people that want to move to Ecuador, but in the first year, 10,000 of them, take off. They move with the intention of living there. That's why they got resident visas, and then they didn't stay. And that's very, very high attrition rate. And so there's reasons for that. Mostly what it is, it's not that Ecuador is, a bad place. It's that the information about Ecuador, there's a lot of lies out there. There's a lot of rose-colored glasses, a painting of a picture of a utopia that it isn't. It's just a place. And that has more to do with people that are selling that idea, that are making money from that situation. And then people get there and find out, well, I didn't realize it was going to be like this, and had I known, I wouldn't have come. But then you also have the other half of the people that are perfectly okay with it and stay. Not forever. It's actually a very small percentage that stay after 5 years. But it can be a very nice place. There's, so I'm not here to slam Ecuador. I had a great life there for the 3 years that I lived there. Colombia has a lot of similarities. It has a more stable government, but there's accessibility, and there's a modern society here that's not third world. That's I guess you have to come and visit and see. And some people don't want any kind of modern society. I think the way the Colombians do it is great, because it's still that laid back, relax, take it easy, don't get worked up over things. On the other hand, if I want to get the latest drone, I can go buy one. It's if I want to have a Angus ribeye steak, I can go get one. And in Ecuador, you're not going to go get one. So, and I don't want to play. I use all the time the cheddar cheese and the ribeye steak as examples. It's not just that. There's just so many things that you're used to having availability in your life. And if you don't believe me, just look on any Facebook page in Ecuador, and every day you will see, does anybody know where I can get cranberries? Does anybody know where I can find XXL t-shirts? Does anybody know where I can get? There's a constant quest for items that they went out and searched and searched and searched and couldn't find. A lot of cases there's alternatives to it. In many cases it is available, but maybe only in one particular place, or maybe it's just not available at all. And here in Colombia, you don't really see that very much. When you look at the Facebook pages here, you don't see people doing that. They're more asking, do you know, I'm new here and I don't know what store sells bedding, what's a good store where I can go get stuff. Sheets. I can buy the nicest of sheets here if I want. In Ecuador, there's a few places you can get them, but you're going to pay hundreds of dollars for a bed sheet set that I can buy here for $30. So it's those kinds of things that people will find out about Ecuador and take a burn to it. Now other people say, I don't care about having really nice sheets, and I don't mind that these are a little sandpapery or whatever, or I can go find some woman who will make something up for me, and so you can find ways around it, and you can make your life work that way. So it's just for me it's better here, but for many people they're very comfortable there. So I think the only way is really to evaluate what you think your life wants to have. Yeah, culture shock is a pretty good point, and that might be actually a good term to describe more what I might be simplifying what I'm trying to explain. When you go to Ecuador, there's going to be more culture shock. It's more foreign. It's more like you've landed on a different planet. And it's a long way to Earth to get your hands on XYZ. And so now you need to learn more to live like the people that are living there and just do without certain things that you're used to. Life will still go on. Your life can be happy. When you come to Colombia, there really isn't that much of a culture shock here. I mean, there's certain aspects of it, but you can live your same life here if you choose to live it. I mean, you can live in a penthouse apartment, you can live in a nice apartment, you can live in a farm, but it's easier to get a car, it's easier to own a car, it's easier to get a driver's license. Those things are doable in Ecuador. It's just much more difficult to do it. And everything you know about how to get things done in the United States doesn't apply in Ecuador at all. And actually half of it doesn't apply here either. So there are different cultures. I think Colombia is far closer to North America than Ecuador is. What country is better to start a small business? Neither. Ecuador can be very problematic because you have a lot of for permitting. I've told the story about my friend who has a restaurant, hostel, awesome place, Santa Canela in Cuenca. If you're ever in Cuenca, check it out. Wonderful guy. His wife, they're very good friends. I was his very first customer when he opened up, but it took him 4 years to open. He was so frustrated after the third year, he was in tears and about ready to give up. He had taken his life savings from when he made jewelry in Texas, and he brought it back to where he's originally from and where all his family are, in Cuenca, Ecuador, to build his dream. And the government just kept standing in his way. The cost just kept escalating, and he didn't think he was going to do it. And his family convinced him to keep trying. And a year later, he finally opened up. And he's doing well. He's been open for a number of years now, and he's doing well. And you won't meet nicer people. Of course, his English is real nice. His wife is from Malaysia, and her English is quite good. Her Spanish is a little hit and miss, but she gets by. Probably on the same par as where my Spanish is right now. But I had a lot of talks with him about the struggles of opening a business and a lot of the issues that you have if you have labor, all the labor laws that are there that really tell you don't want to have an employee, having to pay double 2 months out of the year, and if they're caught stealing from you, you still have to pay a penalty if you get rid of them. There's all kinds of things that are just kind of crazy there. Now here in Colombia, it's also difficult, but in a different way. It puts you in a tax category that could be problematic, not necessarily, depending on how much money you're making, but the tax laws here are more complicated, so you definitely would want to have an accountant to guide you through that. There is permitting. There's less government intrusion in opening a business here because it's more of an entrepreneurial society. A lot of people, as a matter of fact, poor people here can climb out of poverty just by selling stuff on the street, and then they take that and they buy themselves a cart, and then from the cart they buy themselves a storefront. I know I've got a friend here in Armenia that began making his tacos just on the street corner, and then he got a cart with a big umbrella, got permission outside of another business, and he sold his tacos there. You've seen me talk about his tacos, some of the best tacos I've ever eaten in my life. Now he has a storefront up by Portal Condillo Mall. So you can climb here with minimal of obstacles. So it's definitely more business friendly here, but there are pitfalls, and you're going to want to, being from another country, you're going to want to guide through it. Also, You can't open a business if, for example, you're here on a retirement visa. You have to get a special visa to do that. So it's a little more problematic with visas also. And also in Ecuador, that's something you have to look at, but it's a little more particular here. So I would say Colombia is more business friendly, but you are still going to have obstacles, and in many cases, depending on your situation, you may find that it's just not worth doing. If you want to do a business here, do an internet business where everything is really outside of the borders of the country. Okay, last thing it looks like. Mentioned blonde hair and blue eyes, look like he's from another world. Yeah, in Ecuador that's absolutely true. Almost 70% of the population is indigenous or mestizo. And here in Colombia, blonde hair and blue eyes is not such a rarity. I mean, just the other day I saw this guy. It was like 6'5". I mean, he towered over me. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was born in Bogota, and he's lived here his entire life. Yes, I'm still on the board, but I'm inactive. I do have to get back one of these days and sign a document. Uh, they actually could ship it here, but I don't know. I keep coming up with times when maybe I'm going to go back, and then for one reason or another I can't. I would love to go back this Christmas, but I won't be able to afford the trip back. But one of these days I'll get back there. There's things about there's people there that I miss and wish I could see again. I'll go stay at Santa Canela, for a week and hang out with them again. All right, so that's it for today. Sorry about the YouTube problems. Hope you got something out of the topics today. Excuses? No, it's not excuses. No, it's just reality. Excuses would be if I didn't really want to go, but I would love to go. It's just not practical for me to go right now. I'm trying. I'm actually trying to put it together, but it's not looking good. We're getting closer to when I would have to go, and it's just not looking very good. And if I go, well, I don't want to get too personal, but okay, best hamburgers, my house, but some great hamburgers in Cuenca these days. Great food. There's a foodie culture that has sprung up. When I first got there, oh my God, it was hell on wheels. I did a lot of video about how atrocious the food was and how hard it was to find something good. And now it's really not the case. It's actually more of a foodie culture in Cuenca. I won't say Ecuador in general, but in Cuenca than maybe even here in Armenia. Although there's lots of variety and lots of good places to go, so it's not like what Ecuador once was. I mean, it's so good here now. Of course, Colombia, when I was here 17 years ago, I hated the food. It was so boring, so bland. But now, they ate the same thing every day. But they've they've assimilated food from all over the world, including the U.S. So burgers a big thing here, but steaks and seafood and Thai food and Chinese food, and I can look on my phone app and find several places to have sushi delivered to my house if I want. That's actually quite good. So all right, so now I'm rambling and I'm off track. So that's it for today. I've got a number of videos that I'm working on editing. I've got a third part to Robert's visit to Salento, Finlandia. I've got that I'm working on. I've got the coffee park video that I'm working on. I've got the camera video people are asking about, and I'm sure that'll just be for the people that are interested in that camera. But I am putting that, excuse me, I am putting that together. I've got one other, maybe a little surprise video. So there's a lot going on. I'm very busy, and thank you all for the questions. I don't know if there was anything else, but Mike, I saw a donation from you. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for that. And to everybody else who has donated on GoFundMe or through Google Pay or my Patreon subscribers, I appreciate it to no end. It's the reason these things keep going. So, with that, I'll see you next time.